Make I just start by asking this question. You don't see Nnamdi Kanu?
Yes, I met him yesterday for almost 3 hours at the headquarters of the DSS in Abuja. And we had quite an interaction, private interaction initially, and later on he was interviewed by 3 DSS officers in my presence. I wanted to call it an interrogation, but they said no, it's an interview, during which they asked him routine questions, but most of the questions centered on his being the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra and the activities of that organization. So he answered the questions in a relaxed atmosphere, with bearing in mind his constitutional rights not to incriminate himself. Of course, some of the questions had background information that he considered incomplete, and he told the officers that he was not able to answer some of those questions because the information that they supplied to him was incomplete.
If you describe to us when you see Nnamdi Kanu, how he be, what's in his state of mind?
Well, his state of mind wasn't as sound as it should be. You know, if you listen to his broadcast, you would know that he's a historian. But when I was talking with him, he had trouble recalling the actual date he was abducted. It surprised me. So to jog his memory, I asked him how many nights he spent in Abuja before he was brought to court. He told me 2 nights. So he was brought to court on Tuesday, the 29th June. So we figured he must have been brought into the country on Sunday, the 27th. So when I mentioned that date, he said, sure, that's the date. But I took particular note of that. I also noticed that he had a visible injury on his right wrist. I asked him what it was. He said it was where they had chained him, put the chain on him, and chained him to the concrete floor in Nairobi, Kenya. And he has disappearing injury on the left wrist and an injury right here at the nape of the neck. He appears like somebody who has been mentally traumatized, you know, so he's unwilling to talk about 1 or 2 things until you prompt him. Like when I prompted him about the date, that's the conclusion I drew, how many nights he spent in Abuja.
Is he afraid?
No, he's not. He's traumatized.
If you tell us more about what's happened, because you just mentioned Kenya, and Kenyan government don't come out to talk, say, they no arrest Nnamdi Kanu for Kenya. So tell us more about
this. What happened is this. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu entered Kenya, I believe, on a certain date, right around April this year. I'm not sure. I'm trying to establish the actual date of entry. But I have documentation from a Kenyan hospital that placed him in Kenya as of 14th April this year, 14th May. So he entered Kenya.
And what did they do for Kenya hospital?
He went there because he had issues with his heart. He felt he wasn't well. So he went there, he was examined, and the diagnosis was hypertension and heart murmur. They made prescriptions for him, and my examination of the medical report indicated medications for heart and controlling blood pressure. So apparently he entered Kenya before the 14th May this year. So he had settled in at a location in Nairobi, a temporary location, and he entered with his passport. That day, on the fateful day, that was on I believe on the 19th, yes, not believe, certain, 100%. He drove himself to the airport from his temporary location in Kenya. He drove to Jomo Kenyatta International and went into the garage, the underground garage, to pick up a visitor flying in from outside. Okay, that is not necessary for this discussion, the identity or whatever. So the moment he got into the parking lot, the garage, a group of several men well armed to the teeth. And
this now waiting Nnamdi Kanu tell you about what you remember of waiting happened before they bring him to Nigeria.
This is what he told me, and his recollection of this was very, very lucid and clear.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so now they swooped on him. They gathered and grabbed him. okay, in a very physical, rough way, and he raised the lamb. Luckily for him, there were a few people that were there, and the people wanted to intervene in terms of really very aggressive intervention, because to them, I asked him why they would consider making an aggressive intervention when something that seemed law enforcement was happening. He said perhaps they didn't believe it was normal. So the people that were abducting him told everybody to stay clear, that this person you're looking at is a Nigerian terrorist who assists the Al-Shabaab terrorists in Kenya. They grabbed him, put him in their car, and left, and took him to a private residence, not an official detention facility, where they chained him to the floor. For most of the 8 days he spent there, and they really tortured him, thinking he was Al-Shabaab. So he kept telling them he wasn't Al-Shabaab. He had nothing to do with Al-Shabaab. He kept telling them who he was.
Who be these people?
Well, I asked him who they are. He told me they are Kenyan security officials. I asked him why. He said the insignia, the carriage, that he had arrived Kenya, so he had a bit knowledge of the terrain and how the law enforcement functions and the sort of things they wear, how, you know, that they were brazen with weapons openly. It couldn't have been private parties or, you know, some rogue agents doing that. He told me that the thing has a 100% degree of officialdom to it. So they took him to that location, and they were torturing him, and I'm sorry to say they really beat him a lot. So, but at some point when he was trying to explain himself, he told me he was blindfolded most of the time, chained to the floor, bare floor.
But the Kenyan government don't clearly talk, say they don't get hand for this, and they not arrest Nnamdi Kanu for the ground. And also the federal government never come out to talk anything about where your client, where they arrest your client from.
Okay. You see, it's not going to be a question of he said, she said. I'm a lawyer. I operate on the basis of independent and credible evidence. The Kenyan High Commissioner might have sounded credible to the general public, but the information available to me can impeach every single word she uttered, including the denial that came from the home government. I have immigration stamp placing Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya just 2 months before his abduction. I have medical evidence placing him at a Kenyan hospital. Okay? And I have his own word. He's a man of sound mind.
And what's in your client, Nnamdi Kanu, tell you about how they move him from Kenya, as you talk, say, tell you, to Nigeria?
Yes. You see, he said on the fateful day, that was the 27th on Sunday, 27 June, they drove him in a car to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, blindfolded him, and bundled him inside a private jet, like a Learjet. I asked him if it's a Boeing 777, so whatever, or Airbus, the big ships. He said no, it's a normal private jet that you often would see some people owning private jet, that kind of size. And he was the lone passenger in that jet, in that plane, and he didn't clear immigration. They drove him straight, on the tarmac, straight to the plane and very close to the plane, and put him inside the plane with Nigerian security officials, and left about 12 noon in the afternoon, and landed Nigeria same day in the evening, around something after 4 or to 5.
Make we talk about the trial where go begin again on the 26th of July. Yes. How prepared Nnamdi for that trial? Well,
we are, but there's not going to be any trial. There's going to be trial within trial. What happened to Nnamdi Kanu is, by legal definition, worldwide legal definition, what is called extraordinary rendition. It's a state crime. It's a crime by the state. If a private individual abducts or violently and illegally seizes another individual, it's called kidnapping, and is in some jurisdictions, is a capital offense. When state does it, it's called extraordinary rendition. That's what happened. So if you rendered or you renditioned a fugitive or a suspect, you have lost jurisdiction to try that suspect because he committed an international crime. You broke your own laws. You broke the laws of the third state from which territory you renditioned that individual. And you broke the laws of the second state of nationality of that individual. That is what is playing out here. Because we have three divergent but also compliant jurisdictions. The three jurisdictions here, Nigeria, Kenya, and UK, their laws prohibit extraordinary rendition.
Okay, so they've been calls don't come from different quarters, from different groups, say the federal government must handle this case on the fair note, that the trial must happen, Nnamdi Kanu trial must happen on the fair note. Does this make you optimistic?
Fair trial?
That Nnamdi Kanu must have a fair trial?
You see, there is it's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction to say that a jurisdiction that broke the laws of three countries and the international law, that's the fourth component, to bring a suspect before that jurisdiction should be expected to give fair trial to such individual. But like I said, we haven't even gotten to that bridge yet. When we get to the bridge of whether he's going to get fair trial or not, we are going to ventilate it. The bridge we have to cross first is the bridge of testing the impact of the jurisdiction of Nigeria to try Nnamdi Kanu for any criminal offenses stemming from the extraordinary rendition.